for true.
Welcome to Duality Check, the podcast where two brothers embark on a journey through the realms of scientific inquiry, the mysteries of the past, and the uncharted frontiers of spirituality. Join us as we explore the wonders of our world and beyond, all while embracing the roles of curious bystanders rather than experts. Together, we'll unravel the tapestry of existence, blending the dichotomies of knowledge and wonder. Get ready to question, ponder, and delve into the dualities that shape our understanding of reality on Duality Check. I'm Drew.
And I'm Dean. And
welcome. Episode 40?
40. Or as TJ would say, 39 plus 1.
Why does he say that?
He and his friends,
problem?
like, they just had this thing growing up. I don't even know how it started. It's some big long story he has to tell.
Oh, okay.
But they got this thing where, like, if someone says the word 40, what they will do is like, what or how many? And the goal is to get them to say it again and to get it to say them 2 more times, and then you like win their game.
Oh, okay.
So they always avoid saying it by saying
39
like,
plus 1.
Right.
Okay. So it's just some sort of like nut check game, like get them to look down at the circle, like some
Right,
sort of
right.
like little trick your friends to do something stupid for no reason,
Exactly.
and then call them out on it.
All right. This delay is actually getting me. We got the delay back again. So
Yeah.
I'm going to turn off our monitoring. And we can just talk this way.
All right.
That was getting in my head.
Yeah. I don't know what's causing that. I don't understand.
I don't know. It was fine last week, but
Yeah. We got your laptop plugged in. It was a lot better last week. I'm not
it
sure.
was a
what's
lot
going
better
on.
last week.
Maybe we just got too many things open.
Could be.
Anyway.
I'll play with it some more. Anyway, so yeah, today we're going to do, well, I've actually brought a bunch of stuff
saw that,
to
yeah.
talk about.
Okay.
There's a chance this episode turns into that.
Okay.
But the intent is to do another Lou and Elizondo episode. So
Okay.
you guys will know what this is based on the title. You know before us.
Yeah. We'll see how it pans out.
But let's start out. Our
Oh yeah.
number one fan sent us another message, which I totally missed. I
old
only
big
caught
sis.
like from this forward in our text
that's all
chain
you saw?
earlier. And I kept,
because I responded and she wrote a second
yeah.
message,
So by the
that's
time
all
I
you saw.
chimed in, this had like scrolled off the screen, her big message.
And you're
she
probably
looked
like,
so confused when I saw her earlier. I was like, I've been missing your messages. She's like, I sent one. I was like, oh. She looked so confused because I had responded in this chain, but
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
and you're probably confused by like my response. Because all she said was, I can't rate or review your podcast. And then I'm like, thanks for all the encouragement or whatever I said.
Honestly, I didn't even read that one. I just
really?
read that you weren't sure what the issue
Okay.
could be. I'm just like selective reading.
But yeah, she sent us a big old long one like she had been. She took a few months off
Yeah.
of reviewing our podcast, but now she's back.
Welcome back.
So,
All right, so this is what she writes. So this is I believe in commentary to our episode 38,
Must
the
be, yeah.
Secret History
That's
one.
the most recent one we've put out. So
Yeah. Cool. So she says, I love how you guys touch upon the Buddhism and the discussion about childlike eternity. Aren't they so similar? Being present and in the moment. There is a Bible verse in Matthew 18, chapter 18, verse 3. Unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. I think it was referring to this. Become childlike and you enter heaven. I interpret this not as becoming childlike to go to heaven, like it's a place, but to strive for that childlike state, to live in a heaven on earth kind of state. I'm not pushing any religion here or the Bible, just referring to it for an example. Like you guys stated so well, a lot of these different beliefs and religions have similar teachings, or like in this last episode, the guy who shared his channeled info about us creating our religions from the aliens. Whatever, doesn't matter. It's the message. I think we're all capable of creating our own heaven on earth by trying out by trying our best to be childlike, go within, slow down, do what sparks joy and happiness, spending time with loved ones and trying to balance that with being a functioning adult, which you guys also talked about, balance and duality. I think the two of you are doing this beautifully. It feels like the podcast and all its interesting topics brings joy to you both and helps you guys be together with loved ones. Thank you for sharing that with us all. We need more positivity in this world. Love you both.
Kiss, kiss. Love you, sis. Thanks for that. Yeah. Pretty well said.
I don't remember that Bible verse. That's so cool.
Yeah, Matthew chapter 18, verse 3.
Yeah. That's I tend to agree with your read on that.
It says right here, I got the verse. And said, verify I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. That's verse 4. It's just after 3. Yeah,
all right.
Well said, sis. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
we do appreciate all your encouragement and your love.
And yes, this
that episode did talk a lot about that. So,
and the podcast does bring us happiness.
It does, and it brings us together.
Yeah,
which is one of the main joys of it. I believe.
I've got another order of business that I've literally forgot to announce for like a month, and I promised you guys because we did a whole series on the Cosmic Summit that I would let you know when they dropped on YouTube. So if you haven't discovered this yet on your own, the Cosmic Summit YouTube channel, which is just at Cosmic Summit on YouTube, I'll leave a link. They dropped all their videos from the 2024 Expo. So
everything we covered and some that we did,
right,
will all be on there. I think it's all of them, right? At least it's majority of them, right?
I don't know that it's all of them, but it's definitely the majority.
Yeah, there's a good amount, and maybe they're trickling them out slowly too. Because
we got Johanna James and her talk on the Bar Caves.
Malcolm
Bendall. That's his whole. That's his that's his first talk. That's not like his whole day workshop. Dr. Bob Greenyar, A New Dawn of an Old Age. I haven't seen that one.
I didn't see that one either. Adam Young, Robert Schock, Dan Warren. We did cover those. And then Randolph Daniel. Did we cover it? Yeah, his stuff on the Carolina Bays. We covered that or no?
This is Clovis.
Oh, he's the Clovis. That's right.
I don't think we covered him. Haley Ramsey and Scott Wolter,
Dr. Chandra Vikramasinghe,
and Jordan Collin. Rhythmic harmonic.
Yeah, we didn't cover
celestial bodies. I have not seen that talk. I want to watch that one. What was the term the other day? We actually kind of quoted it wrong, or we were referencing it wrong. It was it's like the music of the circles or something.
Oh, the music of the spheres.
The music of the spheres. Yeah. So that is actually referring to like the rhythms of the heavenly bodies. Specifically, is what that refers to.
Yeah, so it was when we were talking about in the secret history of the world.
Related to this.
Yeah, it was like the secret history of the world when we were talking about it, and it was Pythagoras who had been the one in ancient history who had discovered or was able to hear, from accounts and pass down knowledge from his disciples. That he was able to hear the rhythm of the heavenly body. So he was able to hear the music, quote unquote, of the heavenly bodies moving throughout the universe. Yeah, maybe that seems like something that he covers. It sounds like the rhythmic and harmonic dance of celestial bodies. Yeah,
Right.
We'd have to cover that. That's cool.
So yeah, bunch of cool stuff there on YouTube for you guys to all check out.
Yeah, and write us what you guys think and let us know if there's some of these that we didn't get to that you think we should.
Yeah, or just what are your thoughts on some
Or
of
what are
these?
your
These are
thoughts
all
on them,
like
yeah.
really awesome talks. So check them out.
Yeah, definitely. It's worth contributing or supporting the Cosmic Summit. It's a
Oh,
lot of
for
good-
sure.
lot of good
Yeah,
work going
give the
on there.
Cosmic Summit YouTube a like and a follow and everything for sure. 'Cause-
Yeah, and on that note, like and follow for more on us. We love doing this. Continue to do this, and we appreciate any support you guys can give us as well.
All right. So next thing I brought is another Anton Petrov video that just came out. It's called Strange Orbits in the Solar System Explained with Star Flyby. So this is essentially, it could be, and this is still a hypothesis, this isn't proven yet, but like there's been a paper written modeling and showing that the evidence that we're seeing for a Planet 9 with the perturbances in the orbits of like the outer solar system bodies, and even some of the weird stuff that goes on in the inner solar system with like weird moon orbits and stuff like that, could be explained instead of by a ninth planet, but by early in the solar system having a star having done a flyby close
Of the
to
solar
our
system.
forming solar system.
Which caused the orbits to move or change or
Yeah,
be
yeah. So
thrown off or whatever.
let's play some of this.
Okay.
About our solar system is that it has some really unusual phenomena in it that are difficult to explain. And here we're talking about phenomena involving orbits of certain objects. For example, certain objects, such as Sedna that you see right here, have such an unusual eccentric orbit that it's almost impossible to explain by using solar system formation models such as the famous NICE model. And while Sedna is just one of many different trans-Neptunian objects discovered in the last decade that seem to have these orbits that are just impossible to explain unless something else is out there in the solar system or something happened to the solar system a long time ago. And well, as you might have heard before, one of the major explanations that tried to tackle all of this involved a hypothetical Planet 9. A planet potentially orbiting somewhere on the outskirts of the solar system that might have influenced the orbits of these objects, eventually causing these orbits to become super eccentric. But
And then I'll skip forward to the part where he starts talking about. So this part's really interesting.
scattering by planets. Then, at the same time, we also have a lot of different observations of various early planetary systems, and of course various protoplanetary disks.
Dude, look at that. That's so cool.
That's really cool.
So these are a bunch of like,
Infrared images, it looks like.
yeah, of
galactic.
forming solar systems elsewhere, and I believe these probably are in our galaxy if we're able to see them this clearly.
Those are solar systems or galaxies?
These are like
Early
proto
stages.
solar systems that like the stars have formed, but like all this stuff around them, these disks,
Just kinda
this is
like dust and
this is
debris.
like what our solar system would have looked like before everything collapsed
Right.
into individual planets.
Actually
So
solidified.
we are actually able to study a lot of these systems
stages.
before they fully form and see like what the formation of a solar system.
Yeah, I'm wondering
is
if
like-
it looks like it's a scale, right? Like it looks like from the top left.
I think this is just a handful of pictures. I don't know that it's necessarily in any
Sort of looks
particular
like
order.
It doesn't completely. It's not completely congruent, but
But yeah, so
yeah, it's cool.
he
looking.
talks about these.
with many actually showing signs of some kind of a star interaction, or essentially a stellar flyby. And here, even in somewhat low density clusters, at least 1% of these objects experienced a flyby. But in most cases, such as for example in NGC 2244 or the Rosetta Nebula, this percentage seems to be anywhere from 8 to 15% for a typical star like our Sun. So essentially, out of all stars here, 15% seem to experience some kind of a flyby in the first 10 million years. And that's obviously because they actually form in really dense molecular clouds that contain a lot of stars nearby, where these encounters become very frequent. And so overall, these flybys are actually not as infrequent as researchers initially believed. But they do become less frequent as the star gets older, and of course, as it escapes the molecular cloud and as it goes on its own merry way. And so according to this study, based on all of these observations, for a star like our Sun, after 4.5 billion years, the likelihood for a flyby is somewhere between 20 to 30% in total. And here we're not just talking about a flyby at a distance of several light years, we're actually talking about a star entering the solar system and passing within 100 astronomical units away from the center. And though it's only 20 to 30% likelihood, based on the observations from the solar system, it looks like it might have happened here after all. And so here the researchers actually wanted to find out, so what would happen if star did fly by, and how would the solar system develop then? And to answer this question, they essentially ran various computer simulations
simulation.
12,000 years of star formation and several different passages from different
cool
angles
model.
at different speeds
Right.
and at different distances. And interestingly, here they were able to recreate certain parameters of the early solar system, including Sedna-like objects and various TNOs on highly inclined orbits. But these simulations produced something else. They produced retrograde objects, or basically TNOs or various objects moving in the opposite direction. And to the scientists behind this paper, at first implied that maybe their simulation was incorrect. But then they came upon studies where other researchers have actually found these retrograde TNOs, such as the object sometimes referred to as Niku. And intriguingly, this is not something that could be explained by objects like Planet 9, but is something that's explained in their simulation involving a flyby. And specifically, a flyby of a star approximately 80% the solar mass, passing within 110 astronomical units at an angle of 70 degrees. And here the results produced extremely similar orbits, including Sedna and all of the unusual TNOs, as well as you can see from this simulation, a lot of additional objects that still have not been discovered, but have now been technically predicted by this study, which suggests that there are so many more of these objects out there, which, if discovered, would confirm this hypothesis almost right away. But all of this would have to happen very early on, possibly within about 10 million years of the formation of the Sun. Intriguingly, if this is actually the case, maybe this could also explain why one of these objects eventually collided with the early Earth, leading to the formation of the Moon, with additional collisions happening around Venus, Mercury, Mars, and pretty much all of the other planets, including Uranus, that possibly received the largest collision so far. So basically, maybe here, all of these collisions were the result of this initial passage that disturbed a lot of objects and caused a lot of collisions over time. And on
So, yeah. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It actually makes a ton of sense.
Kind of connects a lot of the different things we talked about, like with the moon formation theories and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a star, right? So it'd be another sun kind of moving through the solar system. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so within the galaxy, right? Like our sun is going to form in like a nebula, right? Like these like clouds of material where gravity, like this is the conventional explanation, right? So like gravity is going to cause slowly these nebula to collapse until boom, a star is born, right? And it's these areas of nebula that are especially dense where they have like they spark off all of this star formation, like multiple stars will be born near each other.
Right. It's like it's the solar nurseries, right?
Right. And because of that, it actually increases the odds that these stars can come within passing distance of each other.
And then the gravity would change.
And so if our star, which causes all of our planets to orbit around it, right? It's got that much gravity that's pulling everything around it, and another star comes within our solar system and passes through,
changes the orbital.
it will throw everything off.
And especially if it's not everything, is not all the planets have formed either. So we're talking about like clouds of Like,
or maybe they have, but like they weren't in the state that they're in now. That's why they're saying specifically, like, for this to be the explanation for our solar system, it would have had to happen within the first 10 million years after the sun formed, because we had those protoplanets then, and we didn't yet have like modern Earth.
right.
So it had to have like kicked off the series of events that would have then caused all of these collisions, all of these retrograde orbits, all of these.
With these collisions that he's saying it's likely that there were more planets, more protoplanets within the solar system that eventually collided and because it's so early in the solar system that it's possible that there was multiple planets.
So if you think about
planets, and then they collided to form,
and it kind of makes sense too, because like,
and they became moons of each other and stuff.
It kind of makes sense because like if it's a cloud of gas, right, and everything's coming together to form this star, you know, it's getting more dense there until the star finally explodes. It kicks out this wave. And I think we talked earlier in one of our early episodes about like it's possible even that like sometimes planets can form before stars do.
Yeah, I think we brought that up.
But anyway, so all of these bodies are forming like as you move out from the center where the star is forming. As you move out, like these different rings of the gases, like they're going to be collapsing into different bodies. Some of them planets, some of them asteroids and meteors and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Some of them moon-sized objects, but like everything should be kind of rotating in this nice even disk where there's not a lot of reason to believe that, like, to see why these things are being flipped around into these eccentric orbits.
Yeah, especially because they're not all on the same plane orbit, right? So some of them are moving in retrograde, like you were saying.
Yeah, so
in a
like,
sense, like
solar systems they form into disk shapes because of the spinning. Because of the spinning causes like whatever the angle of the spin, it causes the things above to like
clamp down,
top
so
and
it's
bottom
like,
to like pancake inward.
Yeah. But then you got some of these eccentric that aren't in that because they were thrown so far outside.
Right, but then so if you have if you have a star come through, then all of these things that are kind of neatly orbiting in this nice disk around the sun, all of a sudden their orbits get thrown off. Things get thrown out. When they come back in from being thrown out, they might collide with other stuff, you know?
Right. Like, because if you see it here, like in a three-dimensional model of a sun or a star moving through a solar system, it moves things in three-dimensional space. So when it does collapse down to a pancake, there are things so far outside of it that its orbit is like, so if this is the plane of, like you see my hand is the plane of the disk, right? And some of them might be moving this way instead of like this, like all the other ones. So some of them farther
naturally,
out might be
just
moving.
from the nebula condensing, like they would probably be moving in a kind of symmetric disk. But we need to explain like what causes things to orbit outside of that disk.
Right. That's what I mean.
Shoot. I wanted to show, so this. So notice here how it starts like a kind of a clear pancake shape.
Yeah, and then it moves into a more of a Pringle shape. And then it's.
So here's the pancake shape, and then you have the extra outside of the solar system star coming in, right? And so like you would kind of expect, if everything's collapsing like evenly because of the central mass of the sun, that all the bodies that form around it will form evenly too. And it would be theoretically, if it's just gravity of the sun acting on it, it would be this relatively even disk shape. But it's really just something coming by from the outside of the system that like throws it all into chaos, which causes the complexity of the solar system we see today. And that makes a ton of sense. And then, it gets that Pringle shape.
And then it spirals. And then you've got like this wave form, like see on the outside.
Notice that passing star stole a bunch of the early solar system bodies that are coming along
It
with
dragged
it.
it along, yeah.
Like as it's leaving, those things are following it. The ones that are starting to follow it but get left behind, they'll end up following back into the solar
Into it.
system from super eccentric orbits.
That's what I mean by the super eccentric orbits is like once everything else kind of collapses back into more of a pancake shape, because eventually it'll settle in a sense, because that's why we have these like spiral. I mean, obviously our sun's moving through the universe, chasing the tail of in the spiral of the galaxy. So everything's moving, but this throwing everything off. So, like the representation that we've seen where the sun's moving through and all the planets are chasing it in a spiral form. But then you have like the theorized planet 12 or whatever, a 12th planet, or what are they calling that? Planet X?
Yeah, Planet 9.
Planet 9?
Yeah. No.
I think it's Planet X, obviously, because we kicked out Pluto.
Right.
But
Planet X if we didn't kick out Pluto, but
Yeah.
now it's Planet 9. Right?
and it's the theorized, one that is on one of these super eccentric elliptical
right. And
orbits.
and off axis.
and it's off axis. So that's what I mean by like if
Right.
this is the plane of the, but instead of moving like all the other ones, it's moving like this in a completely opposite.
it's going in the we
It's
still don't
obviously
know,
gonna
but
go-
it's theorized it's going. So
But
there's
it's gonna cross the plane of the galactic of
Yeah.
the
there's retrograde and what's the word for normal grade? Like there's the normal rotation angle that all the planets move around the sun.
prograde.
Yeah,
prograde and
motion,
retrograde.
and then there's the retrograde motion where stuff orbits the wrong way. And there are some of those trans-Neptunian like
Way
out there objects that come in, and some of those are retrograde.
Right. But still, yeah, I guess if it's moving the opposite direction. Yeah.
But I don't think it's
still could
theorized that
eventually
Planet
collapse
9 is
down.
retrograde. I think it is theorized that it's like off,
It's off.
axis.
So it still crosses the
it's
plane.
eccentric.
It still crosses the plane eventually,
Right.
but it's still
So
moving
it'll
prograde.
cross the plane, yeah, and then kick
Still
back
moving-
out. But like it's orbiting
Still
in the
moving
same,
in the same direction
Right.
in general. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So this is honestly
We need to get this graphic model here and have that in our, because I don't know if we'll be able to, because we jumped around and paused it a
we
bunch.
did jump a bunch. I'll snap some. I'll try and get the actual.
At
video.
least that model.
He links to
would
the
be really
paper
good
in Nature. I don't know if Nature has the link
for the model they have
for
there.
their video.
Oh, they got
some nice.
they got some pictures of it at least.
photos. Oh, supplementary video. Here we go.
Sick.
Yep, we can do that.
Cool. So that
So,
was Anton's.
That's Anton Petrov.
Anton Petrov's video on it.
Yeah. And cool.
Hell yeah.
We're pretty close to our first break, so why
Yeah,
don't we
let's take a
take
quick
that
break.
before diving into another video? This is Stevie Nader, Virtuous.
All right. See y'all in a bit.
the darkness once. But I came for you. I'm not living without you. I came for you. I'm not living without you. I came for you. I'm not living without you. I came for you. I'm not living without you. I came for you. I'm not living without you. I came for you. I'm not living without you. Living without you.
Welcome back.
All right. Back to segment 2. We're going to move on to another video here, right?
Yeah.
Dean prepared.
So, yeah, I found there's a new Jesse Michaels video.
Okay.
It's interview with Rupert Sheldrake, who I've heard his name a bunch, and I'm pretty sure I've heard some interviews, but like this is by far the best interview I've ever heard.
I've heard some of his stuff because he's panspermia or panpsychism guy.
Yeah, sort of. He's just a very open-minded guy. I don't know that he exactly laid out what his like active beliefs are, but it's more like the types of things he's looking into.
Okay.
So he does talk about like panpsychism types ideas, but his like sort of big theories that he's put out that are heretical in the scientific community, like not a lot of people take it super seriously, but he's got this idea called morphic resonance and morphic fields. And we'll let him sort of explain. So the first video here, he's talking about panpsychism. So let's check this one out.
And they've persuaded a lot of people that that's the case, and panpsychism's now taught in a lot of mainstream universities. Whereas, you know, when I was at university, the idea of nature being alive was called animism, and it was just rejected as a sort of primitive superstition, or a kind of childish thing that people grow out of by the age of 10 or 11. But now it's, you know, taken seriously. But what these philosophers do is when they get to the brain, which their aim is to explain human consciousness, they stop. And so I thought, well, what happens if we carry on? What happens if we look at the sun? Because given the background that lots of people have always thought the sun was a conscious being of some kind, what would it look like to take panpsychism seriously and apply it to the sun? That was the purpose of my paper. And so in it, I look at one or two, or well, several different aspects of this question. One is, what would be the interface between the sun's consciousness and its body, its physical body, the sun that we actually observe? And I think the answer there would be the electromagnetic field, because the interface between our minds and our bodies, most people would agree, is the electromagnetic activity of the brain. You know, different kinds of alpha waves, theta waves, beta waves, gamma waves, etc. Different kinds of brain waves, which are electrical waves of activity in the brain, measured by electrodes on the skull, so that they're affecting the electromagnetic field. These are correlated with consciousness, and most people would feel they have something to do with it. So if the interface, we don't know how it works, but if the interface of consciousness in our own brains with the physical activity of the brain is through the electromagnetic field, then the sun has vastly more complex electromagnetic fields that stretch out through the whole solar system, which is its body. You know, we're in the solar wind. The magnetosphere of the Earth is like an envelope around the Earth. And when there's a solar flare, or a coronal mass ejection, huge amounts of ionized, electrically charged particles are spat out from the sun. And if they hit the Earth, as they did recently, then you get spectacular northern lights. The northern lights were seen as far south as London, right here. Actually, I didn't see them myself because it was cloudy, but where people were in less cloudy places in southern England, it's very unusual to see the northern lights, which are caused by electrical discharges from the sun getting into the ionosphere and then coming down to the Earth as sheets of plasma and charged particles. So if the sun's conscious, then the electromagnetic field of the sun provides a very good interface for it. And then the next question, well, if it's conscious, then what does it think about? What does it do with its consciousness? There's no point in having a mind if it doesn't do something. What decisions could it make? What choices could it make? How could its mind influence its actions? And there, one possibility would be affecting the direction in which solar flares or coronal mass ejections take place. It has this 11-year cycle of activity, and in the middle of that cycle, there's a lot of sunspots and solar flares and things. So the direction in which they shoot out would have big effects. If they're shot out directly aimed at the Earth, they could take out our power system.
The Carrington event of 1859.
So
Are you familiar with the solar storm of 1859 Carrington? Yeah. Took out, it would have taken out now the entire grid, but it took out electrical lines, and there was big outage as a result of it. And we're
yes.
seeing, as you mentioned, an upsurge of activity right now with the magnetosphere of the Earth weakening.
Absolutely. Well, so the sun can affect life on Earth through directing its flares, and if it chooses which direction to shoot them in, then that would be one thing it could be thinking about, modulating the activity of the whole solar system through its own activity, which immediately influences the entire heliosphere. There's, around the entire solar system, there's a kind of membrane, electromagnetic membrane, called the heliopause. And the whole of the solar system is within an arm of the galaxy where there's streams of particles and electric currents called the galactic wind, similar to the solar wind. So there's a kind of membrane within the galactic wind. And that's really the kind of body of the sun. The sun itself would be like the brain or the heart of the whole solar system. The entire thing is filled with this electromagnetic field. And the sun would be able to sense what's happening in the whole solar system through changes in the electromagnetic field. We're now within the electromagnetic field of the sun through the daylight. Everything that happens on Earth is within the solar electromagnetic field. So then, you see, if one goes on thinking about the sun's consciousness, then what about other stars? Well, why not? And if stars are conscious, why not the whole galaxy? I mean, the stars and solar systems are like cells in the body of the galaxy. That might have a kind of galactic mind. And then galaxies are grouped together in clusters of galaxies, and those are linked up through the entire cosmos by something called the cosmic web, which were threads of plasma through which huge electric currents and magnetic field lines, millions of light years long, link everything together. And when you look at the big picture, it looks very like a neural network joining up all these galaxies. So there could be a kind of cosmic mind. The whole universe might be conscious, and it might have this interface with electromagnetic phenomena.
Yeah.
Bro.
Wow.
I can just watch this whole thing again right here on the podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably smart to be positive at one point.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've touched on this idea, like we've talked about panpsychism, but like to apply it to the galaxy.
Just to hear someone so smart with like such a smart sounding British accent makes it sound so much more official.
Yeah. Definitely sounds better than me, like, fumbling through it. But like, I mean, we've even talked about, like, you see all these galactic bodies and nebula, and like, some of them look like the iris of our eyes, and like the web that he's talking about, this connection, all this plasma that connects all the different galactic bodies together. And there's so many similarities between our physiology and what we see out in the universe, especially now that we have stuff like the James Webb Telescope that are taking pictures of these things with higher and higher fidelities and stuff, and with better and better data points that they can see the different colors and the different things that make it up.
it just like it makes you think like, what if life is just that fractal?
Yeah.
You know, like
The same way our bodies are symbiotic.
yeah, our bodies are
Everything-
made up of these cells. The cells are made up of all these like these proteins and these atoms, which are made up of these freaking froths of complex subatomic particles blinking in and out of existence. And then you go the other direction, like all these humans make up these societies which seem to take on lives of their own.
And what's the
And
kind of
then-
common thread is the electromagnetic force, like this
Right.
electromagnetic connection between all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's these nodes like the suns, the different stars in the galaxies, and the different galaxies in the universe.
In the galactic clusters.
Yeah, and then the solar winds and the galactic winds and the galactic plasma that connects all these different points. Like, what if it is actually just that we are the same thing as the different cells in our body are to us for these higher.
We
and
are
higher,
for the sun what our cells are for us.
Mm-hmm.
The sun is for the galaxy what our cells are for us. The galaxy is for the
Universe.
local cluster
a cluster. Yeah.
what our cells are for us, and then these
And if you-
clusters are for the entire universe. What these neurons are for our brain. Like
And what if if you accept the multiverse theory, then what if our one universe is to the multiverse or a localized collection of universes is to the entirety or the prime mover, the capital
Yeah.
G God, right?
ultimately like wherever, if it ever stops, like whatever's at the top of that chain, if it doesn't just loop back into the bottom, most
If it's
small
not just
things,
forever,
then, like, you
eternally
would call
here
that
and now.
God, right? Like
And what if that's exactly it? What if that's the point? What if, what if that's the point is we are all made up of the exact same things, just fractally smaller and larger, depending on what it is our function is, And at the top, it was sparked or, the imagination or just the being. Like, it's all just happening here and now. The past and the future are all irrelevant, and it's
And
all
what if
just
the,
happening
like-
all at once.
what if the like reincarnation cycle and like the like life development cycle is like, it's not just taking you like through like different lives as a human, it's taking you like at one point you were a subatomic particle, right? And you've been slowly graduating, like connecting with more and more life forms, the same way we're connecting as families and friends on our lives on Earth, right? And then we want to travel together through future
this-
lives together,
Yeah.
right? So we
Right.
start as these subatomic particles, we join in these teams, we create these bigger collectives. That collective, we elect a
Share a
consciousness,
goal.
like we come together to form a larger consciousness out of that. We call that an atom or a subatomic, like a proton, right?
Or a ring nebula, right?
Right. And then from there, like those protons and like those particles come together to make, like it just builds up and builds up to these layers of consciousness where things are forming from the most simplest. Like if panpsychism is true, like that those most fundamental conscious units are like experiencing together, forming in groups, building larger consciousnesses that can then go on to interact together, building groups, form larger consciousnesses.
Man. When I hinted to you that I've been working on my kind of overall theory of all these different phenomena as it relates to us here and now on this planet as we see it, right? And this is going to make its way into that theory. Like
Yeah,
it's still
there you go.
unfinished, and I teased it to Dean a little bit, but I'm gonna take a few more weeks or maybe a month more and like kind of put it all together and get my thoughts all together. And we'll cover it on one of these episodes, but this is definitely going to go in there in some form or fashion.
It's good stuff, right?
Yeah, it's very good stuff.
All right, so here's the next part I wanted to show you.
Okay.
I think that's a perfect segue into morphic fields, which I think most people probably know you for, which are these sort of a collective memory or mechanisms of inheritance that are orthogonal or lie outside of the traditional kind of materialist reductionist Darwinian model. Do you want to describe what they are and maybe one seminal experiment?
There are two parts of my hypothesis, really, morphic fields and morphic resonance. The idea of morphic fields is that all self-organizing systems are organized by a field which shapes their form and organization. The word morphic means form in Greek. So they're fields of form. And that at every level of organization, the whole is more than the sum of the parts. So the morphic field of an atom, which is pretty well what quantum field theory describes, is those fields of the proton, of the nuclear particles, the nucleus itself, and all the electrons around it. That together makes up a vibratory pattern of activity, which is, everyone agrees, underlain by fields, in this case called quantum fields or quantum matter fields. Then the field of a molecule includes the fields of the atoms, but links them together through chemical bonds or clouds of electrons going all around, whizzing around the outside like a kind of membrane of an organic molecule. And then in cells, you have the membrane, you've got all the structures within them, all the molecules held together in a lot higher whole within tissues and organs and organisms, and then societies of organisms like flocks of birds or termite colonies. At each level, the whole is more than the sum of the parts and organizes the parts to form a coherent whole. That's what I think morphic fields do. I think they're what give the wholeness that which is more than the sum of the parts. But such fields could not be inherited by DNA or genes, because DNA and genes code for the sequence of amino acids in proteins, which is very different from organizing the structure of a termite colony or the shape of the wing of a bird or the form or the instincts of a giraffe. These things are not just protein molecules. They're much more complex patterns of organization. So they can't be inherited through genes. So how are they inherited? Because they obviously are. I mean, animals of a given species form the right kinds of bodies over and over again and have the right kinds of instincts over and over again. So this is the second part of my proposal, that this happens through a kind of memory across time, directly connecting similar systems through the process that I call morphic resonance. And resonance is analogous to acoustic resonance, where if you make, so you put the sustaining pedal on a piano, for example, you go ooh into the piano, it'll resonate back, ooh. If you go E, it'll go E. What's happening is the strings in the piano are resonating with the tone you're making and the overtones, which are different for the different vowels.
Right. So I don't know if you know that about music, right? So like you can actually do this with tuning forks too, right? Like if you have two middle A tuning forks and you bang one on the table to get it resonating, bringing it next to the other tuning fork gets the other one resonating with it.
Right.
And then you move the first one away and this one, you can hear it resonating.
Right.
So that resonance is the same way like our electronics work and stuff, right? Like it's a way that these vibrations can spread and
without having to have the source there at all times.
With similar things.
Yeah. So you don't have to have the source with the thing at all times. You can just have the resonance of the whatever the original.
Right. The original thing is putting out these resonance. And something else that has a similar form will pick up that resonance and start vibrating with it.
So, yeah. So it won't have to basically sit there and babysit that resonance the entire time. It can move on to the next thing and change so that it's picking up all the different resonances, or it's be able to change the resonances or whatever, right?
All right, so let's keep going here.
Okay. Making those strings all vibrate, and that gives off this sound, and that's acoustic resonance. And radio and television and cell phones all work on resonance too. When you tune in a radio set to a particular frequency, the aerial of the radio set's resonating with the frequency at which the transmission's happening, which is why each transmission has its own frequency. So that's a well-known form of resonance. It happens across this space, and this room's full of radio and cell phone and television transmissions. We can't see them.
What would you say is the seminal, I mean, there are various seminal experiments, around rats and riverbanks and, other sorts of scenarios, but do you have a sort of a favorite one when it comes to kind of speaking about this to a mass audience?
Well, I think the simplest example of morphic resonance, the easiest to understand, is the rat example. That if you train rats to learn a new trick in London, then rats in New York and San Francisco and Melbourne, Australia and Beijing should all be able to learn the same trick quicker just because the rats have learned it here. And that should happen without any normal means of communication. It would happen by morphic resonance. They're confronted by a similar problem. The rats are similar. They should be able to do it quicker. Now, there's actual evidence from a long series of experiments with rats that actually happens. Also, if you make a new chemical compound for the first time and you crystallize it, that crystal form won't have existed before because it's a new compound. And the more often you crystallize it, the easier it should get for crystals of that kind to form. And in fact...
That's amazing.
Well, it is actually really well known to chemists that new compounds are very difficult to crystallize. You maybe wait years before you get the first crystal, but thereafter it gets easier to crystallize all around the world.
That's insane. That's crazy. I think about sometimes athletic accomplishments too, where somebody pushes the bar just a little bit farther, and then all of a sudden it just seems easier or something, ostensibly, and like you could attribute that to like modern doping or something, but I think it's something more than that. It's almost as if an accomplishment that formerly was thought to be impossible is uploaded to a central monad or repository or something, and then if somebody calls upon it with the right resonance in the future, it's that much easier because you have more data in the repository or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that could be, that's one possible explanation. The thing is that whenever I put forward ideas about morphic resonance, I'm assailed by crowds of skeptics.
Yeah.
Rightly so. It's important in science to have skepticism. With athletics, one of the skeptics' arguments is, well, you're now tapping into a huge, much expanded pool of contestants.
Yep.
And before only a few sort of middle-class English people and a few rich Americans could take part in Olympic Games, and now you've got people from all over the world, millions, billions of people who potentially could compete. So the ends of the normal distribution curve, you go out further, as it were.
Can I tell you why I think it's not accepted? Because you can't turn it into math, and people
Yeah, and this goes into a whole different discussion from here. But
I was going to say the same thing, though. I was going to bring it to that. If he hadn't done it for me, to bring it to the idea that humans do the same thing, right?
Right.
There's the same phenomenon with athletic performance or even other feats outside of athletics specifically. But like once something is that was otherwise seen or previously seen as impossible to accomplish, or the bar was set so high on and one field, or we'll just do the mile time, right? Somebody runs a 3-minute mile time, or I don't know what the fastest one is now.
It was the wasn't it the 4-minute mile that people thought?
Yeah, it was like the 4-minute mile time, and then after that it was just broken like repeatedly.
Yeah.
And you could see how the idea of this morphic resonance could be that. But I think with humans it's a little bit harder.
The skeptical argument he presented there, like that is a valid argument too.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
both. Like it could be this morphic resonance is
Or that
contributing to it.
The
but
pool of people.
you cannot deny the fact that like our species is becoming, it's easier for us to survive. More people have free time. More people are engaging in sports. There's many more millions and billions of us than there were in the past engaging in these things. And therefore that distribution curve, that bell curve is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what does a bigger and bigger bell curve do? Well, the sides of it go out further and further, which means the top performers are way better than old-time top performers, and the worst performers are way worse than the worst performers.
Especially with athletics too, because even like today's like average professional athletic person could outperform a lot of the people who are doing these things in the past.
The problem is that argument can work for almost any like human thing, whether it's intellectual or sport, right? Because that same bell curve phenomenon would apply because we live in a period of time where our population had exploded recently and wealth in the world had gone up. And so more and more people are engaged in more and more activities. And so we're going to obviously make more and more progress in each of these activities with more and more people able to contribute to them.
Yeah, I would say that like maybe they got into it after this because we kind of stopped right when they were about to talk about the math stuff. But like maybe if you were to do the experiment on somebody who is doing some sort of groundbreaking research in a field that nobody knows anything about, and they come up with this like answer, but instead of telling everybody about it, all you do is you go somewhere else where people are doing that same problem and trying to find the same problem, and you see if they're able to solve the problem faster without having known the
pretty
answer.
strange phenomenon which has happened multiple times over, which is like you've heard the like saying that like an idea whose time has come kind of thing, right? Like where like it wasn't just Newton, but it was also Leibniz who also came up with calculus, like right at the same time.
Yep.
And this happened over and over in multiple disciplines with multiple discoveries
At different points, yeah.
Yeah. Which is interesting, which also could tie back to that morphic resonance. And it's less likely, it's more likely that the distribution curve is also pushing that. But the reason he was like trying to focus it away from humans is because it kind of skirts that skeptical argument, right? Because it's not like lab rats are having these population explosions, and like what is the hell is the mechanism for lab rats in Paris and lab rats in New York?
We know for sure that they're not communicating and that they're not.
But we also know that like they learn behaviors quicker, even if lab rats an ocean apart.
Well,
we're already trained on something. And like the crystallization argument, like there's no even life, like according to materialism,
unless
there's no life
panpsychism.
There to like, but according to scientific reduction materialism, like there's no life there to like be had, right? So like
what's the communication
without consciousness, without any sort of life, like what then is your explanation for these crystals? Like having the first one be so hard, and then having like once the first one is there, like all of a sudden like more and more of these crystals are formed more and more easily.
Yeah, especially when you were talking about these things taking years to form, and then now they're taking weeks or months to form. And
then eventually it's on an industrial scale.
Yeah, it's happening on a minute by minute scale.
And you can get it in like. You can understand it in like close proximity, right? Because like once there's a crystallization that happens right here, like it will be whatever its resonance is, right? But something about that can like coax something near it to like take a complementary form. So like in the direct local area, but I think what he is alluding to is that it's not just in the direct local area. It might be like larger than that. And I don't know that he didn't exactly say that here, so I would want to like look into his books to see like how wide that actually goes, because in the lab rats, like he is making the claim that like if you train lab rats on one thing in Paris, and then someone trains lab rats on the same thing in New York, the ones in New York after
That
the ones
have
will
already learned
learn
it.
that training quicker than the ones in Paris did.
Yeah. Well,
So I don't know if that same distance separation works for the crystallization as well.
right. He didn't specifically say it there, but it's potential. Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about it too, though, like the idea that ideas are living things.
Right. That's
And that,
like
that you can pull them down from the cosmos. That like once an idea is had from whatever the generation of that idea, wherever it came from originally, like the first thing to have that idea, then it becomes so widespread. Like
that goes back to Plato.
Let's say,
Plato's idealism ideas.
well, let's say that like you just have this thought about all these things, and yes, nowadays you can say that Google's listening to you or whatever. You have some technology listening to you, and then of course they run with your idea because they want to be the first to make whatever kind of technology it might be based off of or whatever. But back to Plato, like there's no evidence of that there, right? But like he did mention, I don't know if it was the first video or the beginning of that second video you played, but like that there might be some sort of like genetic memory, and that that your genes are not the things that are creating. They're not the ones who have agency over all of the different parts. They have the agency over creating the physical body and all the systems that go into creating the physical body, but they're not the ones who are. It's not the thing that's creating all of the lived experiences that the genes, the collective, assembly of those genes or your body is experiencing, but the memories are being uploaded to some sort of because we all are made,
or they're
of the
just
same
resonating,
genetics.
right? Like they're
exactly,
they're
and where does that
resonating
go?
out, and as they resonate out, anything that is like in a
That can
similar
pick that up.
position, like is ready for it, like is close enough
that can
in a close
receive
enough
it.
circumstances, they will receive that resonation, and maybe that is like the source of like inspirations.
And it's recorded within our.
Like where an idea just strikes you out of nowhere. Like maybe you just like happen to put yourself in the
Resonant frequency to pick it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it kind of ties into a lot of these different ideas that we've had too, but like panpsychism being like a big one, like the ability for non-physical objects that we are, physical objects, but non-life actually having some sort of agency or ability to resonate with and connect just like us, like the air and all these things that we don't believe to have any sort of life to it. The life, it's like the resonance itself is the form of life. And yes, it's not living, breathing, talking, all these things, but it has a form of communication, and it's able to take that resonance and shoot it across the universe, or even just the earth if you don't want to go that far, and it's able to bounce off of it until something else that has the same resonance is able to receive it. So an idea that you have privately that you've never said out loud that you have, and then years later somebody took that, has that same idea and make something of it because they had the physical capabilities to do it, or the knowledge or the time or whatever it might be to actually make it happen. But it was just an idea that you had, and then now it's being widespread among the world,
Right. And
like
he
that idea.
sort of uses these like resonances to explain things like psychic phenomena. He uses them to explain things like why when you're thinking about someone, they're more likely to call you, or like why if someone's looking at you, you can feel it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I'll leave a link to this video. It's freaking fantastic. Like everyone should watch the whole thing because
I'm gonna have to go through this.
This
this is a new one that Jesse Michaels
just
came
dropped.
out.
Yeah,
and it sounds like he.
Well, at the time we're recording this, for you guys, it's going to be a couple weeks old because we're getting recordings in ahead of schedule. Yeah.
And it sounds like he went to London to meet with him, huh?
That's one of the cool things that Jesse does. Like, he doesn't really do a lot of remote interviews. He like goes out of his way to like meet with people in person. And most of his videos, this one not so much, but like most of his videos, you can tell are happening over multiple
days or
multiple meetings.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he really takes his time with a lot of these, and if he doesn't get what he wants out of the first one, he'll try to, and sometimes he will do remote stuff too to continue it, or he'll have a conversation with somebody else who has a similar idea or whatever, and then he kind of puts it all together, and he doesn't just rush it out.
Right. Like so he's got these multiple interviews, and then he uses the interviews. I think this is his production process. Like, he'll go and do interviews, like, and he'll prepare for the interviews because he knows like what he wants the topic to be about. He'll do the interviews. He'll like weave together the interviews and then do further research. So like when a person brings up a topic, and they don't fully explain it out, he'll then go do further research and like add in voiceovers and dubs and graphics to like help bring you along with the concepts that are. This one was more of a straight up interview, this episode, but like if you watch like all of his UFO videos and stuff and all of his other stuff, like his format is really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. We're over here, so let's have a little break, and then we'll come back, and then we can hop into some Lou Elizondo. This is TJ McNulty, Uncanny Potential.
What a great title.
For something great, well, I can't understand him, but I like him anyways. And you know that you have to be young and smooth nowadays. Oh yeah, that's the way. You can tell he is the man. Just look how elegantly he stands in that and tie. Look at the change in his eye. I wanna shake that hand. Well, I can't tell because it all sounds the same to me. Well, you call me ignorant, saying dark's the only reason I see. Well, you know that 82 of us, we feel the same. Oh yeah, 82 of us say it's time for a change. Well, my priest even says he is the man. Well, church and state separate, but yet we don't understand. Cause that suit and tie, oh, it's got me mesmerized. He's gonna change this land. He's gonna change me. He's gonna change me.
Welcome back.
All right, here we are.
So, we had another one of those break talks that could have been a segment on the show.
Which I think we'll kind of wrap back into it, and I think we might do a third and final, and we might just make this an extended
segment. Yeah.
Instead of jumping into the
I think
book.
we're gonna keep on these topics that are leading off of what we've covered so far, and make this the episode about sort of morphic resonance and wherever else we go from here. So I've got a video that I thought of sharing while we were out there. So this and we've talked about cymatics before, and I know you're aware of it, right? I don't know if you've seen this video though. So the video I'm going to show you guys here is highly visual. Like it's
Mostly visual.
just an electronic song if you're not watching the visuals. So please go check the link in the description or check the YouTube version of this podcast.
Yeah.
So you can see the visuals along with it. But this is, if you have not heard of cymatics is the study of how vibration can create form, right?
Yeah,
and so you'll see it like the kind of conventional way of showing it is like you take a speaker, right, and you set it on a table facing upwards, right? And then you like take a piece of plastic or something,
Or a
lay it
plate
on-
or something.
or a plate or something, and you like lay it on top of the speaker.
Yeah.
And then you like sprinkle some sand onto that plate, and then you play a sound through the speaker, and that sound will cause resonance through the plate, which will cause the sand to take different shapes on top of it.
It's also done with water a lot of the times.
Yes. And so this video is showing a whole bunch of different like cymatic techniques, all like edited together into a music video. So this is by Nigel John Stanford. It's called Cymatics, Science versus Music.
Sweet.
All of the experiments in this video are real.
The film you're about to see has no characters. If you spare a little of your imagination, it is a film to describe to you the effect of cymatic frequencies on matter.
Dude, that's so cool.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
That's the first time I've ever seen like someone do like a cymatic demonstration of that. So
with the stream.
yeah, they got this tube of water just flowing through this tube, but the tube is taped and connected to the speaker cone so that as this like kick drum is hitting, it's causing the tube to vibrate, which is creating these like beautiful shapes of the water coming out of the tube.
That's
That is
pretty cool.
So cool.
That's pretty cool.
Dope.
everything owes its existence solely and completely.
Do this like close up of the sand, just like
Kind of bubbling.
moving on the plate. Bro, like, think about it. It's like every individual of these sand grains, right? Like, for each one, all it is like, it gets kicked up in the air by the vibration, right? And then it comes down, like it takes a certain trajectory because the vibration like causes the plate to move in a certain direction, right? So it'll kick up in that opposite direction. When it comes back down, depending on the state of the plate, it'll get kicked back in a different direction, right? And but it seems like it should be mostly random. Like, if you wouldn't think like that each individual grain having its own individual kick up and kick back up and kick, would collectively form these beautiful shapes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, unless there's some sort of like the vibrations is creating some sort of like magnetic
It
like
feels
attraction to
right. It
certain
feels like an
formations.
attraction or something.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like a scientist, like a skeptic, would say, "Well, no, it's just statistics. It's just that, like in these, there's like these nodes and anodes, and in these like anodes, it's gonna push everything one direction, and these nodes is gonna push everything in the opposite direction, and so you're gonna get these places that like gather and these places that repel." But it's all based on statistics. And like, sure, I think that's probably true, but like, you're missing the forest for the trees, I think, with that argument, because like what we're seeing seems to be form arising out of vibration.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, like this is a smaller dimension. Like if you were to imagine like a fully 3-dimensional version of this,
Yes.
of like just vibrations happening in, let's say, a cube where all of the cube is filled with sand or whatever, and the vibration was happening, which maybe there's a video on this too. Like, what would happen?
You could probably
like,
do
what
it with smoke.
Yeah, or like what kind of formations would you get from the same sort of vibrations?
Dude, I've had like a back of the mind thought for like years, ever since I was introduced to cymatics, of like, what does, like, who is someone doing 3D cymatics? Because someone has to be, right? Like,
It's gotta
God,
be
I
happening
hope
somewhere.
someone in the world has to be doing
Like with
this.
the water, in a sense, you could see it, but it's still on a flat plane. Like it's still
Right.
being done on a flat plane. So like, imagine what that would look like in
what forms,
a pool.
like would it form like sacred geometry forms? Like a lot of these things seem like, some of these shapes that you're seeing like look like cells forming next to each other. Like,
right.
it just makes you think of like, and then God said, "Let there be light."
Yeah, and like
like it was the word, like the vibration, the speech, the like is what's creating.
right. And well, like we talked about, like in the Secret History, like the idea of the sun god, roaring
Right.
right. Life into existence, roaring matter into formation, which is
Yeah.
creating the matter as it is. Like there is, in a cellular form or in like a universal mist or like galactic mist, there was these unformed molecules, and then when sound moved through the universe,
Vibrations
the
from the stars, from the black
created
holes
all
at
of
the
the
center.
different
Right, like you get these like
forms.
I think I recall, and I may be wrong on this, so let me know if I am, but like I think I recall science saying that like they think it may be the case now that most stars are binary stars, and it may be the case now that most like black holes at the center of galaxies are actually binary pairs as well. And what would that do? That would be creating these like gravitational
vibrations
ripples
and waves.
Ooh.
Yeah.
vibrations that are like pushing out, which could then, through cymatic effects like this, like cause formation
matter to
into
form
planets,
different
and
structures.
whatnot. Right.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. And I have seen this video, but it's been a little while since I've seen it. But I think I stumbled upon this, and it was like a short form like version of it. It wasn't the full, it's almost 6-minute video of it.
Yeah.
I love this video, and I
think
love
it
other
changes
videos like this.
Let's do a couple more minutes of this.
Okay.
To sound.
Yeah, he does. So cool. Yes, the fire
this
stuff. This is such a cool technique.
Such a cool visualization.
I'm pretty sure the way this works, what they do is they take a tube, right, and they drill a bunch of holes in it, and they feed in gas, right? So it's just kind of like a propane thing, right?
Yeah.
Like just like a one
just
you
like
would
a burner.
have, just like a burner you would have in your backyard or whatever for like a gas fire pit. But on one side of the tube, they put the speaker, so sending that vibration through the tube,
gas,
and because of those resonances and standing waves that are being created inside the tube, it's ejecting the fire at different amounts based on the waveforms.
Yeah. It's like, these are like real life visualizations that you would have seen on your computer back in the early 2000s, when you're listening to music and you do those cool visualizations and stuff. Yeah.
I've seen a few videos of the like fire tube examples.
Yeah.
It's commitment. They all shaved their heads for this.
Oh, this one. Yeah. He puts on the chainmail suit and goes into like a Tesla coil thing.
Oh, right.
I forgot about that part.
What a genius video. Are they implying, that Tesla coil is arcing to that plasma ball? Are they implying, they said everything in here is real. The sound in the room is
directing the
changing the arc patterns and causing like timed bursts of the Tesla coil arcs.
So far, all he's doing is touching the plasma thing, which...
No, but like with the big one that was like shooting off the lightnings, it was doing it in beat. Like, is that being influenced by like the shapes of the cymatic shapes of the air currents inside the room?
Well, it doesn't look like there's any specific shapes of the arc itself. It's more of like it's directing
but it's the timing of it.
The timing, maybe, yeah. Like the timing
like
of the arcs.
A burst of like a kick drum or something causes a compression of air to come past it. Like, is that like
creating
like
path.
a nice ground path that's like causing an arc to happen right as that kick drum hits?
The shortest, the path of least resistance for it.
That's so cool. Would you do that? Would you wear one of those chain suits?
I'd do it.
Oh, that's so
That's
cool.
sick.
Dude, how freaking cool is
That's
that?
so creative. To
But,
do a
like-
music video like that.
Like, this is all happening with the influence of sound, right? Like, what about the influence of electromagnetic waves? Like, what types of effects, what types of
Patterns
cymatic
and-
effects on matter does like
Large
electromagnetic
scale,
waves
large scale matter
or
too.
gravity waves have?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities, especially if there's different mediums for cymatics to happen in, and like this is the form that we see. Like this is the form that we're able to experience
Yeah.
in this form.
Yeah.
You know, with our, limited ability to detect. But if you go macro, and there's all of these other formations happening in the universe, and they're using a different medium to connect all these things. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows what that would look like? But yeah, so let's, on similar topic to, kind of law of attraction and manifestation, spirituality, and like the idea of the, what was it that Rupert Sheldrake was
The morphic
resonance and stuff, and just kind of similar idea. I found a video, and this is our weekly dose of Bashar, as we're calling it now. Yeah, we'll play this video from him.
All right, let's check this out.
Connect to that visualization, you will feel like that is you. You will start to mirror, to mimic, to match the vibration, the body language, the actions, the choices that version of you in that visualization is doing. You will behave like that version of you more and more and more. The more you key into it, the more you have that visualization. But that's just for the purpose of getting you to start behaving like that you, to exist in the state of being of that version of you, to feel the excitement and passion and peace and balance that exists within that version of you. And as soon as you feel that, as soon as it rises, as soon as it fulfills you, as soon as you radiate that frequency and you feel you're going to burst at the seams, you're so excited about that visualization of the ideal reality, the ideal, authentic, adventurous, extraordinary life. Drop it. Erase it. Blank it. Zero. Flatten it out. And go into the void, but keep the excited state. And then hand over that energy to your higher mind and let it take that energy and lay it out like a blanket upon the landscape and let it show you what things need to now come to you, in what order, in what way, in what fashion, at what. If you really connect to that visualization,
At
Yeah,
what
they
time
cut that off a little
to
bit.
allow that to come to pass, right?
Yeah. So you sit in this bubble or this moment, like what is it that I want for myself? What is it that I see as being my true self? Get to that point of like excitedness.
Yeah.
And
This is
then
like
allow it to
this is like
tell
vision
you-
boards and like you know, like journaling and like like trying to be intentional and like
About
put
it.
out, this is like basic law of attraction stuff.
Yeah, and he talks about it as like allowing your higher mind, whether you have a deep, conversation with yourself at that higher mind or state or not, but like believing that and understanding that there is this resonance of what your overall self would like and has it has a way of understanding what it is that you truly want, but you have to allow yourself to to visualize what it is that you want so that your higher mind can lay out the path forward, you know? And the higher mind just being like, can really just be,
I mean,
the acceptance of
if you
what
don't
it is
believe
that
in
you
spiritual
want.
stuff, it could be represented by like your subconscious brain. If you believe that there's something more, that there's some sort of like spiritual something going on, then like, you know, people call it like your soul or your oversoul, right? Like there's something like,
Or your third eye, something that's seeing the world differently than what you are, you know?
well, it's like it's something that can go to work for you while you aren't consciously focused on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. That's a really good way to explain that. I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Man,
And he's got many of these things too.
I still have this
he has
like
this whole,
reflex I'm trying to get over of like when people use like new agey language, like not letting that like, oh my God, this is so woo woo. Like I have to fight that all the time because like there's, you know, I have this duality in my head. Like I got
You
that
gotta-
one foot in the science thinking and that one foot like really like wanting to like commit more on this like kind of spiritual side and like have the courage to like take it seriously. But it makes so much sense, dude, especially in like the context of everything we've talked about this episode. Like,
Yeah.
like this, if you were to like translate this to Rupert Sheldrake's language, that visualization, you're creating a resonance, you're creating a morphic field, right? And then you're allowing it to resonate out there so that it will connect with things that will reflect that resonance.
It will be the, like he said, like the mirror, like you're allowing your resonance, your energy to resonate, and what's coming back is a mirror of what it is that you're putting out, right? You're putting out what it is that you intend to receive, and what you're getting back is the mirror of that. So you're setting yourself up to see more of what it is that you want to see.
Right.
Yeah. And we talked about like with your buddy and like with the
So I was telling
my
Drew,
old dreams.
like, let's go over a little bit.
Yeah.
What we talked about outside. So, I have not been partaking in weed since I went to Atlanta. So we're at about a month and a half now. Just because I was getting habitual with it, like I wasn't using it for like a purpose. I was using it for habit, right? And so by like, you know, I want to just show myself I don't need it. Like I can exist totally fine without it. And so I haven't had any in quite a while. And now, you know, I got a close friend who's, you know, been telling me like, hey, like, you know, weed actually kills your dreams. Like you are less likely to dream, or at least remember your dreams. Maybe you are still dreaming.
And I've had the same experience with myself too, because there's been times where I've been on and off of it, you know, and the times when you're off it, you definitely remember. Like I can remember a dream, you know, and I still smoke every once. I haven't actually smoked in a little while now, but like few weeks or whatever. Like I remember a dream that I had when I was off it for over a month. Like I still remember. I don't remember all the small details of it, but I remember the overall of what I took from it. You know,
I've been having more and more dreams as I've been like getting further and further away from having smoked, and so I'm remembering more of them. Well, I'm having more of them, but like they're like really fading as I wake up. But now they're kind of growing in intensity, and I'm having multiple per night. And like today was the first one where I had one this morning that I like actually just without even journaling it or anything, like I remember it now to even tell you about it. So I told Drew about that dream. And then he told me about a crazy dream and story that he had.
yeah. So I had, the dream itself was pretty crazy. But the craziest part about it was that I had this dream, and it was around the time where we started this podcast, and it was something that we were excited about, and I was very excited about. And so it made its way into my dream, and it happened to coincide with the time when I was, not partaking and smoking weed as much. And so I had this really crazy dream. I remembered it very vividly, and it had to do with somebody I look up to, being in it, and it's somebody that I like.
You can name drop it. It's
fine. I mean, I was
Drew's
going to get to that.
Patriots fan.
Yeah, I was going to get to that point,
Oh,
but
okay,
I was
okay.
But it was somebody who like I look up to, and I was excited about this thing in my life, and they made their way into my dream. And we were at a party in LA, and I was with family, and Tom Brady shows up, and I'm like just starstruck, and I mentioned I started this podcast with my brother. I'm super excited about it, and he mentions to me that he had seen it or listened to it and was like, "Yeah, man, keep going. You're doing great," or whatever. But the craziest part about the dream was, or not the dream itself, but my nephew, like a week or so later, texted me and had something similar. He's been going on a journey of his own, finding the things that he loves to do, and he's been, playing pickleball a lot and
he's
joining
to break into the pros. And
stuff. Trying to become pro, and like he had a dream, and he's also a Patriots fan, and he had a dream very similar to that, where he was at a party or whatever, and Tom Brady was there, and he, it seemed like they were on drugs, and for whatever reason he, things weren't looking good. But then when he mentioned that he was on this journey to become a pickleball pro and all this stuff, that Tom Brady took a lot of interest and was like, "Oh, that's so awesome," and gave him encouragement, just like it had happened in my dream. And my nephew texted me without me having to I didn't even tell him about my dream, but I told him right after he texted me. I was like, "Dude, what? That's crazy that you would tell me that, because I a week ago had this," and I remember it stood with me because it had a lot to do with the thing I was excited about the most in my life, at that time.
Right.
And he had something so similar, and like there's just these synchronicities that happen that most people just brush off,
Mm-hmm. Like
But
it's already a cool dream,
right?
Like, because it's like, oh, cool. So
Yeah.
like my dream is telling me like I'm doing something good, but then to like have someone reflect that dream back to you without you communicating it to them first.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so similar, but for what they're into.
But for what they're having something.
Like, that's a crazy...
It's a crazy synchronicity.
That's
and
crazy.
he felt the need to tell me about it. Like, he was so
Right.
excited about that dream and and the fact that it made him more excited about the thing he's excited about. And he
Right.
would tell me it. And then I'm like, yes, like that, I'm excited about this thing. And like, I had the same kind of dream. And now we're both sharing our excitements about the things that we're doing in our lives. And,
Yes. Yes.
and it's crazy. It was,
And then right as Drew and I are talking about this, as we're recording the podcast, I get a text from my friend.
Yeah.
So I got this homie, his name is G-Man. And he has been just massively turning his life around over the last few years. He was struggling with hardcore addiction. It was breaking apart his family. He was just going through all these struggles. And he has been just kicking ass, like conquering his demons, working out, just being such a good father, like eating well, just like kicking ass at work, like everything he can do to like level up his life, like to get rid of some negative habit that was holding him back. He I swear every week or two, he's always like coming back to me, telling me some new thing that he's like, oh yeah, I realized that this thing I was doing, this ain't helping me. So he chucks that out and he starts something new. And he's like been having all of these crazy synchronicities that are starting to happen for him, and they're getting crazier and crazier, and they're happening more and more often. And he just like feels like the universe is telling him that like he's on the right track.
Yeah.
And so part of like that addiction was like, it damages a relationship, right? So like it really hurt his relationship with his wife, and now like the thing he's working on right now is like really rebuilding that connection and rebuilding that strong bond that was there at the beginning of the marriage, right? and that love and that like excitement for each other. And so he's been going out of his way to do things that she has always wanted to do that he would never do because all he cared about was his addiction. Right. And so like he remembers back in the day, she would like want to go on dance lessons and like go on dancing with him.
Do date nights and just
do date nights,
do
like,
things
to go
that,
out dancing. And so this is the text he sends me. It's he says, just saw a sign that says, quote, "Yes, G," on my way home from a ballroom dancing date night with Melody. The universe is literally encouraging me with writing on the wall. Wild. And he sends me this photo, and I'll link this in the podcast. This is crazy.
Yeah.
He's literally like,
These are synchronicities,
it's like
man.
a political poster. It says yes on G, but the on is so small that from the distance he takes the photo, all you actually see is yes, G.
Yes, G.
Like, come on.
You're doing it, G.
Come
Yes,
on.
G.
Like,
That's what you need to be doing, man.
That's the universe winking at you, man.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. That's
And-
so cool.
Yeah. And that's like another thing.
That's that morphic resonance right
Yep.
there, man.
Yep. And that's like what Bashar has talked about too, and on another episode or another, podcast, or I don't know, whatever he calls them, talk. And he said like your higher self or your, subconscious, it doesn't speak directly to you in plain English. It speaks to you in signs and shows you the way. Like it'll manifest things in your life that have nothing to do with your life to show you that you're on the right path.
Right. Right. Man, that's cool.
So cool. I think that's a cool place to end it. I think we
Thanks for sharing that story, G. And
absolutely. That was a cool story.
That was awesome. And I'm proud of you. And freaking, that's so cool. That is so cool.
Keep kicking ass, man.
You're an inspiration. So thank you.
Thank you to everybody who watched this video or listened to this podcast. At least that music video is highly visual. We paused it a few times, so it'll be a little bit difficult to edit in, but we'll get it. Okay, I'll get a little bit more time on this one. So.
Yeah. And we'll have the link if you want to watch it all uninterrupted. But yeah. So Instagram, Facebook and Instagram is where you're going to see when and where we post. Every week we post on Tuesdays at 6 a.m. is when we usually go live, or not go live, but we post our episodes. You can check us out on YouTube and Rumble. Our website is dualitycheck.net. If you go to dualitycheck.net / the episode number.
Yeah, and that'll get you right in there.
Yep.
Or
/
you can,
episodes / the episode number.
Oh, okay.
So,
if you want to reach out to us with any kind of synchronicities you have going on in your life,
let us know what kind of synchronicities are happening for you, or what kind of crazy dreams or morphic resonances have you had
you're
in your life?
experiencing. You can DM us on any of the socials or message us on YouTube or Rumble. You can email us directly at host@dualitycheck.net. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks for hanging out with us this week.
And we'll see you all soon. Next time. Adios.
Peace.